The World Series is upon us, and we've already seen some instant classics from the 2025 postseason. So it got me thinking, what are some of the greatest postseasons we've witnessed since 2016? What are some of the worst ones? Which ones provided the best storylines, the most entertainment, and will be remembered fondly years down the road? So normally when I do a video like this, I like to use empirical data. It injects objectivity to it. I'm not just going like, this was the biggest juice ball fraud of 2019, because he just kind of had that stank on him. This time, however, we're throwing all that out the window. We're going based purely on vibes this time, baby, all right? We're not using any numbers, none of that nerd shit. Get that nerd shit out of here, dude. We don't have time for it. I gotta get this video out like really soon, okay? This is gonna be purely subjective. Argue with me in the comments. I'm gonna be full force stating my case there. That being said, there are some factors that I'm considering when ranking each one of these postseasons. We're looking at prominent storylines, moments, special performances, all-timer games, and obviously all-timer series. Basically, I'm looking at what ends up sticking with us years later. Which ones do we remember that we can circle back on and be like, that is the example of the ultimate MLB postseason that had everything that this stupid sport has to offer. And I do want to rank them all relatively to each other as well. So that's important to know. The last 10 years, pretty good postseasons, all things considered. If I were to wrap them up into one package and rank it, it would probably fall under an A or B tier. I will say, I am going to judge all these postseasons as a whole, meaning that one amazing World Series isn't going to save what could otherwise be a pretty meh postseason. Now, I am doing since 2016. Why? Well, from 2014 to 2015, I didn't really follow baseball all that closely. And then before that, I was a kid. And like, what did I know? Look, y'all, I was graduating high school. I was in several bands. I was going to college for the first time. I had a life, okay? But then it all fell apart. And that's when I got back into baseball, which I imagine is a story that applies to a ton of y'all as well. So before I start rambling about all the mistakes I've made, let's go ahead and get into it. But first, a word from today's sponsor. As some of you may know, I moonlight as a touring drummer. This means I'm constantly traveling and need to be as organized as I can while on the road. Unfortunately, organized isn't really a good way to describe me. I was especially worried when I was offered to fill in for a band on a West Coast tour later this year. So you can only imagine my excitement when I was approached by today's sponsor, Exter. Exter specializes in efficient, sleek, and easily portable travel bags. They sent me their travel pack vacuum kit that comes with a portable pump that gives you 60% more capacity for storage. Their modular bags are carry-on sized, but gives you the space to pack an entire suitcase's worth of clothes. They also sent me their Finder card, which can be paired with Apple's Find My app. The card fits perfectly into their Exter Wallet Pro, whose sleek design is non-intrusive, while being able to fit all my unused gift cards. Currently, Exter is running a fall sale for 35% off until November 10th. Even better, if you click the link in the description and use code NOMOREFIELDERS, you can get an additional 10% off. That's a 45% discount. Holidays are coming up. We're all going to be traveling. It might be time to upgrade your travel kit. Plus, wallets will always make for a great gift. There's really no reason not to take this deal. Thank you again to Exter for sponsoring this video. A lot of y'all may be wondering why I'm wearing a BMX shirt. I don't know, bro. I'm wearing my Turnpike after. Come on. Stupid questions. So, you see we have our tiers here. Telling my grandkids, S tier, all-timers, any postseason that was just pedal to the metal, balls to the wall the entire time. I am seated, A tier. Again, just really good postseason. Not quite the greatest, but good. Just okay. You know, it gets a passing grade. It's not one that I think is like essential to telling the story of the game, but it's fine. Instantly forgettable. Not a ton of great storylines, not a ton of memorable moments. Maybe there's a couple good games here and there, a couple good series, but ones that if I ask an average baseball fan, hey, name one moment, one thing that happened during this postseason, they would struggle to give you anything. Set baseball back is either we had like a super predictable outcome, you know, no games that would rank over a 9.5 on rate game, and mostly filled with dull series that just were not enticing in the slightest. All of these I'm going to cover in chronological order, starting with the wildcard game / series and leading up to the World Series. So we're starting off with 2016. Let's get into it. Yeah, instant banger. Not to spoil the plot or anything, but I think we all know where this one's going to land, but let's go run through it anyway. So we're starting off with the Giants and Mets wildcard game. I really hate when people call pitchers duels uneventful games. it actually is infuriating to me. This one was good. Madison Bumgarner versus Noah Syndergaard. Really, the last time those two pitchers would be relevant, their careers relatively fell off a cliff after this game specifically, which I find interesting in hindsight. I think Citi Field is a very good playoff atmosphere, even as a Braves fan. I'll admit it. Noah Syndergaard absolutely dominated the Giants lineup, but unfortunately, they had to turn it to the bullpen, which is shaky, but pretty good. Yeah, pretty good wild card game. Off to a strong start. We get to the Blue Jays-Orioles wild card game. This one was an all-timer. I will say off the bat here, I do think the wild card series is a better format overall. Baseball is just a sport that your season shouldn't come down to just one game unless it's obviously a game 5 or 7 in a series. One game series just isn't really fair to either team participating in it, that they played a 162 game season and then they're basically put into the Thunderdome. That being said, there is a special urgency with the wild card game that has just led to baseball chaos. When it's going 100%, we have seen some of the best baseball games of all time. Blue Jays Orioles is one of them. You know, the decision to put in Ubaldo Jimenez when you literally had one of the greatest closers on the planet in Zach Britton that year, just sitting in the bullpen, that's going to go down in infamy with Orioles fans for the rest of time. Rogers Center, another fantastic October atmosphere. Place was absolutely wild. This was kind of the last hurrah for that Toronto Blue Jays core with Edwin Encarnacion, Josh Donaldson, and Jose Bautista. So yeah, off to a good start already. Then we get to the division series. Dodgers Nationals, again, pure cinema. Now, just remember back then, the Nationals came in as the favorite. This wasn't the Dodgers team that we're used to seeing even a year after this postseason. They were still finding their way under the Andrew Friedman era, but they pulled through. Clayton Kershaw coming in Game 5 to close things out. Just another great moment that Dave Roberts tried to replicate a couple years later. We will get into that. Division series between the Cubs and Giants. So I'll just say this. The storyline of this postseason was the Cubs. Let's not beat around the bush here. Even from the beginning of October, the Cubs felt like the team of destiny. They were probably the only 100-win team that everyone was rooting for, just because the, 116-year World Series drought. This was a good series. I know in the Ben Zobrist video, I said that the Cubs steamrolled over the Giants. The Giants actually did put up a good fight. You had a couple crazy games at AT&T Park. This was a really good series, and this kind of felt like passing the baton. The Giants were kind of a powerhouse during the decade. This was the second year in a row that they failed to make the championship series after appearing in it in, 4 of the last 5 seasons. Indians Red Sox, kind of a snooze fest. The 2016 Red Sox, a powerhouse offense that just got shut down. This was David Ortiz's final postseason. Went out with a whimper. Wasn't really fun to watch, for being honest. Blue Jays Rangers, I gotta be honest, I don't remember this series, which is funny considering the fact that the year prior was one of the best division series of all time that was played between these two teams, and it kind of just fell flat. Cubs Dodgers, low-key a good series. I don't have a ton to say about it. Again, the Cubs just were clearly the better team here. The Dodgers, again, still trying to figure themselves out. This is really where Kyle Hendricks made his name. I know he lost this game 2, but it was a 1-0 pitching duel. Again, not ever going to say a pitching duel is uneventful, especially when it's 2 of the game's top aces pitted against each other. Indians Blue Jays, this should have been a better series than it actually was. The only thing I really remember from it was Trevor Bauer having to leave the game early because his finger kept bleeding because he sliced it on his drone. In retrospect, that was incredibly lame. Dude, you're about to pitch the biggest game of your life, and you cut your finger while messing around with your drone. Brother, come on. So yeah, championship series were okay, which kind of sucks after getting some pretty good division series in the NL and good wildcard games. But look, it's all about the World Series here. One of the greatest World Series of all time. I mean, going into it, we had 2 teams with the first and second longest World Series droughts in MLB history going at it. No matter the outcome, whoever lost would have the longest World Series drought of all time. So the stakes going into it were at an all-time high, and it delivered. That's special. It'd be one thing if the series only went 5 games or 6 games, but the fact that it went all 7, it was the Cubs coming back after a 3-1 deficit, and that Game 7 might be one of the greatest baseball games of all time. I know that I said earlier that one amazing all-time World Series wouldn't automatically place the entire postseason in the S tier, but I'm sorry. This is the one exception. And again, the rest of the postseason wasn't bad. These are still some really good series, minus a couple of sweeps in the ALDS. But yeah, I'm sorry. Telling my grandkids, this is the one exception. The one exception. We're using the exception card at the start here. No other World Series is going to be an automatic placement for S tier, except for this one time. I have been told before by someone who hates baseball, right, that they watched the Cubs win the World Series and they were like, that's all I needed to see. That's the best thing this sport is ever going to offer. I don't think I need to watch anything else. I don't like that somebody told me that, but I do kind of understand. If I were to get somebody into baseball and show them, you know, the history, the lore, gamesmanship, the battle between hitter and pitcher, this is the game I'm showing them. I'm showing them Game 7 of the 2016 World Series, arguably the greatest game of all time. Next up, we have 2017. Starting with the wild card games. Brother, holy shit. You want to talk about baseball chaos at its finest. Diamondbacks, Rockies. By the way, the NL West in 2017 was absolutely stacked. If you thought it was good this year, the Rockies, even the Rockies look like a good team. But here they were facing off against the Diamondbacks, two absolute powerhouses. Archie Bradley, the reliever for the Diamondbacks, had to hit for himself, hits a 2-run triple to put the Diamondbacks up 8-5 in the bottom of the 7th. Rockies edge closer with back-to-back solo homers from Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story. You just want to talk about one punch after another. Jeff Mathis had a sack bunt. Yeah, I forgot how good this game was. This was wild card game chaos at its finest. Didn't really look a lot like a normal baseball game in any sense. Just absolute insanity. And then you think that delivered. No. We got Yankees Twins in Yankee Stadium. Twins, who at this point, it's becoming a public storyline that they have a playoff losing streak. I'm not saying that they have just lost X amount of series. No, they haven't won a playoff game since 2002. They come into the Yankee Stadium, they immediately rattle them. Brian Dozier hits a home run off of Luis Severino. Luis Severino just does not have it. You know, this is young rookie Luis Severino we're talking about, by the way. Gets pulled after only recording one out. Didi Gregorius, notorious Twins killer. He was so fun to watch on the Yankees, man. Starting out strong, Twins extend their losing streak. Then we have Cubs Nationals. This was a really good series. Nationals, you want to talk about another storyline. The fact that they just could not get over the hump, that they were eternally stuck in the division series. It was like their purgatory. Cubs were a notably weaker team in 2017. The magic of 2016 wore off a bit. I want to say they got off to a slow start, or they had like a couple rough months there during the middle of the season. It wasn't that pole-to-pole domination that they showed in 2016, but they do edge out over the Nationals. There's that one really memorable play with Wilson Contreras picking off a Nationals runner on first in Game 5 to end a potential rally. Close games, went down to the wire. Game 5 was absolute pandemonium. Dodgers, Diamondbacks. This is a theme with the 2017 and 2018 postseason where you had two AL West runner-ups that felt just shocked to be there. Not that they had no business necessarily. I think the Diamondbacks were a talented enough team to make a run at the postseason, but they just happened to face the buzzsaw that was the 2017 Dodgers, especially in a short series where they were well rusted. Yeah, Diamondbacks kind of didn't have a chance. It could have been a better series, though. I actually, going into it, thought the Diamondbacks could at least make it interesting. They didn't. Astros, Red Sox. We're going to have to address the elephant in the room here. I understand that I was saying, which postseasons are we going to look back on? And I've made it a point that I'm judging all these based on how I view them in 2025. Oh, man, I don't want to do this. I understand this year is going to be forever tainted because of the Astros cheating scandal. But let's just take a second and appreciate these series for what they were in the moment. This video isn't to relitigate the Astros cheating scandal, to investigate, every moment where there's trash can banging. MLB was purposely vague about the role cheating played in the postseason. They did say it happened, but they just didn't say to what extent. But let's just take these at face value. Some people are going to automatically click off this video. Some people are going to disagree with me and say 2017 is forever tainted. It should go under set baseball back. I totally understand that, but I do want to give it its fair shake. That being said, the ALDS between the Astros and Red Sox, kind of meh. There was the Jose Altuve 3-homer game. Red Sox just felt like a notably weaker team in 2017 than they did in 2016. I know they had fortified their pitching behind Chris Sale. They looked like they had a better shot in 2016 against the Indians than they did in 2017 against the Astros. I'll just put it that way. No surprises there. Then we move on to the Yankees-Indians series, and we want to talk about an all-time division series. Holy crap, dude. This was it. This had like everything that you wanted. The Greg Bird homer off of Andrew Miller, Francisco Lindor grand slam, Yankees fans' first taste of postseason Chapman, which is always going to be a roller coaster ride. This was just an all-time series. The Indians came into the postseason with a chip on their shoulders. You know, they just lost the 2016 World Series, longest World Series drought in MLB history now. They won 22 consecutive games this season. Felt like the better. I mean, they won 102 games. I want to say that's a franchise record. It feels like a franchise record, but they were facing the Yankees. Remember at this time, this was a team that had no expectations. This was like the first Yankees team that had no expectations since like the 80s. Or early 90s. This was the baby Bronx Bombers. This was Aaron Judge's rookie year. This was Gary Sanchez. This was Greg Bird. Greg Bird, man. What happened? You were supposed to be Mark Teixeira's replacement, and you absolutely stunk it up. But you did have a moment. You did have that home run off of Andrew Miller, so I'll give you that. Yeah, this was a heavyweight fight between two really good teams. I really thought the Indians could pull through, but, you know, nothing bad ever happens to the Yankees. So just remember that. The NLCS between the Dodgers and Cubs, rematch of 2016, so that's another aspect I'm looking for. We all love a good playoff rematch. It builds character between both teams. It's kind of the Batman Joker. You know, they define each other in a lot of ways. You can't really have one without the other. This one, however, felt like Batman versus Joker, and then Joker comes back with like the U.S. military behind him. There was the Justin Turner walk-off homer, one of the most like uneventful walk-off homers, because again, there was no point in this series where the Dodgers didn't feel like they were in control. It really just felt like them taking care of business. The Cubs were a noticeably weaker team than from 2016. This just wasn't. It's kind of funny that both felt like mismatches in totally opposite directions in consecutive years. This was kind of a snooze fest. The ALCS, though, the 2017 ALCS, I got to be honest, I'm kind of sick of talking about it. I feel like I've covered the series ad nauseum between replacing Jeter and replacing Mariano, in addition to the Astros rotation video, where kind of made the argument that's like, hey, you know, even if they weren't cheating, their rotation was pretty good behind Justin Verlander, Dallas Keuchel, and Charlie Morton. This was a great series. Home team winning each game really came down to the wire. You had the Astros with a world of expectations behind them, because we remember at the time too, you know, the Astros were in the middle of their window. This was a team that was eliminated by the Royals in the division series in 2015, failed to make the postseason in 2016, and then came in and won 101 games in 2017. World of expectations for the Astros. Yankees, this was supposed to be a rebuilding year, and here they were making it to Game 7 of the ALCS because, again, nothing bad ever happens to the Yankees. This was pure entertainment value up and down, teams just trading blows, really great championship series. And then we get to the World Series, and it's hard to talk about. Even 8 years later, it's difficult for me to find an ounce of objectivity when talking about the Astros 2017 World Series title. But I will say, face value, this series, all-timer. I understand that Game 5 is forever going to be tainted because of what we found out 2 years later. But being in the moment, watching that game happen before my very eyes was just pure adrenaline. It was one of the most entertaining games, especially the fact that it was supposed to be a pitcher's duel going into it. Game 5 of the 2017 World Series was Dallas Keuchel versus Clayton Kershaw, and it ended up being one of the craziest high-scoring games in World Series history, really since like the 1993 World Series when the Blue Jays beat the Phillies 14-13. And remember, the Astros did take 2 games on the road. MLB being super opaque when it came to unveiling the results of their investigation into the postseason itself doesn't help. It's always going to be a mystery box as to who on the Astros specifically was cheating. Because of the cheating scandal and because of the fact that it just wasn't a great look for baseball, that there's going to be this asterisk forever associated with it. I can't put it into telling my grandkids. I am going to put it into I am seated. If it wasn't for the cheating scandal, I probably would put it into telling my grandkids, though. Next up, we have the 2018 postseason. All right, let's get into it. The NL wildcard game. Look, I don't like it when people say a pitcher's duel is uneventful. Not to be pretentious, but if you're a true ball knower, if you understand what makes this sport great, you shouldn't have any issues with the low-scoring game. That being said, this one was kind of a snooze fest. It being a wild card game especially, and this just felt like a sad ending to the Cubs dynasty. This was the last time they made the postseason really under this core with fans in the crowd. We'll get into 2020 in a second. I would argue that the game 163 that both teams played the day before, which I'm not including here because that's the regular season, were both more entertaining than the wild card game itself. I mean, the most memorable play from this game was a hug. Let's be real here. It was a hug. That's not good. It was the Rockies' third string catcher who ended up getting the go-ahead hit in the top of the 13th after just a bunch of uneventful innings, one of the weakest wildcard games, and it doesn't really get much better in the AL. Yankees toppled the Athletics. I really liked this Athletics team a lot. They won 97 games in 2018. They had a super bullpen between Blake Trinan and Lou Trevino. They still had Crush Davis at this time. They had the emerging core with Matt Chapman and Matt Olson. A far cry from the 2017 wild card where the Twins put up an actual fight. The Yankees were just the last man standing. Really, after Aaron Judge's 2-run homer in the bottom of the first, the Yankees were just in cruise control the rest of the game. Also, too, Yankees were the first 100-win team to ever have to play in a wild card game. But there was not really a moment where the Athletics even felt remotely in it. Moving on to the NLDS, we'll start with the Dodgers and Braves. This was, again, the Dodgers taking care of business. The Braves were fun. They were the baby Braves. You had Ron Acuna Jr., Ozzie Albies. You had a fun young pitching staff of Mike Foltynewicz and Sean Newcomb. God, Ron Acuna Jr.'s grand slam after taking what should have been clearly ball 4. Great early moment for the Braves during this window, even in a series that was lost, just to know that we could at some point go toe-to-toe with a team like the Dodgers was a good feeling. But the Dodgers, again, just taking care of business. They were clearly the better team, clearly outmatched us. Didn't really feel particularly close at any point. Then we have the Brewers and Rockies. The Rockies were a team that just felt surprised to be there. Kind of a dull series overall. I also remember the weather in Denver was like not particularly great. It just kind of made for these like aesthetically like unpleasing games. This team just didn't really feel in it at any point. Brewers, really strong roster in 2018. The 2018 Brewers were a really fun team. I miss them. First ALDS series between the Astros and Indians. I gotta be honest, I don't remember a single thing from this. This really felt like this version, the Indians were coming to an end. Astros, after winning 103 games, just took care of business. None of these games were particularly close, just a dull series. But then we do get to the final ALDS between the Red Sox and Yankees, and this one was a blast. Whenever the Red Sox and Yankees meet in the postseason, there's always going to be fireworks, even if we are long gone from the days of the mid-2000s rivalry or even the rivalry back in the 70s. The temperature has certainly changed a lot in recent years, but there always is going to be that historical significance every time these teams meet. The Red Sox felt like the much better team. There was the Brock Holt cycle in Game 3. The Red Sox drubbing the Yankees 16-1 at Yankee Stadium. I cannot imagine being a Yankees fan that day, paying like a month's salary to watch your team lose 16-1 to those damn Red Sox. That 9th inning of Game 4, the Craig Kimbrell postseason experience. We want to talk about the Aroldis Chapman postseason experience. I'll see you that, and I'll raise you Craig Kimbrell. He was an absolute blast to watch for the Red Sox that year in the worst way. Complete roller coaster of an inning. Really the only good division series, I would say. But we do find redemption in the championship series. Dodgers Brewers was probably one of the low-key best championship series we've gotten in this time frame. We want to talk about storyline. We had Manny Machado, who was a trade deadline acquisition for the Dodgers, spiking Jesus Aguilar, the "I'm not Johnny Hustle" quote. Let's not beat around the bush here. He was acting like a douchebag. Fun, tightly contested games. I mean, there was a second where it felt like the Brewers could actually pull this one off. There was the infamous decision to start Wade Miley in Game 5 and then pull him after one batter. Postseason is the best time for every discussion surrounding the game to be amplified. We'll get to that especially in 2020. But the Brewers were a team that I think a lot of people would be like, oh, they're like way too analytical. They're overthinking. You know, they're not just getting out there and playing ball. You know, they're trying to outthink you. You don't do that in baseball. You don't try to outthink your opponent. You try to outplay them. This one doesn't get enough credit for just how much entertainment value it brought us. And then we have the ALCS between the Red Sox and Astros. This was another like all-time classic. I mean, you want to talk about two juggernauts going at it. The only issue is that it only went 5 games. It did not feel like a 5-game series. It had Andrew Benintendi's game-saving catch in Game 4. Baby-faced Rafael Devers getting one of the cheapest Crawford box shot homers you'll ever see off of Justin Verlander. Yeah, this was a really good series. The only issue is that it only went 5 games. If this went the distance, just like the NLCS did, this is one we'd be talking about to this day. And then we get to the World Series. On paper, a really good matchup. I know the Dodgers only won 92 games that year. They got off to a slow start. This was still the Dodgers that we were used to from 2017. Finally, the team working at maximum efficiency, but the Red Sox were just unstoppable this year. You just want to talk about a team that never really had to sweat. This was Alex Cora's first season as a manager. Dude just pushed all the right buttons. The Eduardo Nunez pinch hit home run, bullpen usage, the aggressiveness, the sense of urgency that he had. I will say the game that we all remember, I think we remember it for the wrong reasons. It was the 18-inning game, the only game that the Dodgers took off of Max Muncy walk-off homer. I will say, though, Nathan Eovaldi's performance in that game, probably one of the best relief performances you'll ever see for a pitcher that took the loss. On paper, should have been as entertaining as 2017 was, and it just didn't really live up to the billing, unfortunately. So I'm going to put the 2018 postseason in just okay. I think if we had a stronger World Series, it would go up to I am seeded, but unfortunately, the World Series just didn't have that same oomph to it that the 2017 World Series had between the Astros and Dodgers. Red Sox, a crazy run that they went on in 2018. Moving on to 2019, we have the Nationals and Brewers wildcard game. Yeah, again, one of the greatest wildcard games of all time. You had future Padre Juan Soto getting the game-tying 2 RBI single off of future Padre Josh Hader, and then future Padre Trent Grisham booting the ball, allowing the game-winning run to score in the 8th inning. All-time classic game. The 2019 postseason was all about the Nationals. Just an amazing underdog story, an amazing comeback story after losing Bryce Harper and getting off to that terrible start. Stark Raving Sports just put out a really good video on their season that you should check out. But they really dominated the headlines for this postseason, and really for all the right reasons, in my opinion. Then we get to the AL wildcard. Again, kind of a snooze fest. Unfortunately, the Athletics, again, won 97 games, but were cursed with being in the same division as the Astros, who won 107 games. God, Tampa Bay Rays felt like they just took care of business. Tampa Bay Rays at this time were a dangerous team. And it is bitter in hindsight, knowing that this was the final postseason home game played in front of fans at the Oakland Coliseum. Just adds like an extra sting to it that they just went out with a whimper. The polar opposite of the NL wildcard game. Going to the division series, we have the Cardinals and Braves. Do I have to talk about it? Can we skip it? Can we just pretend it didn't happen? No, but seriously, it was a good series. There was a little bit of bad blood between the teams. Like, it was tasteful. It was tasteful bad blood between the Cardinals and Braves. Like a little Taylor Swift bad blood going on here. And it was actually a really, really good series. Up until game 5, be like, but it was like such a great inning for the Cardinals. But I'm sorry, even as an outsider, like the game being over after the first inning, that's not enjoyable for anybody, unless you're a Cardinals fan, because you basically won the game before it even really started, before the Braves even had a chance to come up to the plate. Oh God. Okay, it was a fine series. Moving on. Then we have the Nationals Dodgers. One of the greatest division series of all time. Nobody expected the Nationals to pull through. You could go back, look at anyone's predictions. I'm going to do some homework. If someone can link, I'm not going to do it. Normally I would do this because I like to be thorough in these videos. But if anybody can link me to a tweet, I don't care who did it. I don't care who made it. A tweet, an article, anybody who predicted the Nationals to win, I would love to see it. I'm just going to go on a limb here. Nobody saw this one coming. The Dodgers at this time were a powerhouse. The Nationals were kind of seen as playoff chokers. They were seen as just lucky to be here. A lot of people thought they were just going to roll over and die, even with all the momentum they had from the wild card game. I mean, after they took game 4, a lot of people were like, could they actually do this? And they did. Game 5, just amazing. The back-to-back homers from Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto, and then the Howie Kendrick death blow off of Joe Kelly. I remember I was just in complete disbelief when I watched that happen. Great series. Again, this postseason was just dominated by the Nationals overall. The division series between the Yankees and Twins should have been a lot better, but unfortunately, the Twins at this time were cursed that if they won a playoff game, all of the 10,000 lakes in their beautiful state would dry up, so they had to lose. They were losing for the citizens of the great state of Minnesota. I know it's a state, by the way. Then we have the ALDS between the Astros and Rays. I actually don't remember a lot from it. I remember Tyler Glasnow tipping his pitches on the Rays. This was like the meteoric rise of John Boy, and he did such a great job covering. I mean, I'll be honest here. He did a great job covering this postseason. But we had the Tyler Glasnow tipping pitches, which is kind of funny. Again, nothing wrong with it. That's what you do in baseball. If the pitcher is giving you a tell, you take advantage of that. That's how this game is played. But I do wonder if this were to happen a year later with a pitcher tipping his pitches and the Astros taking advantage of it, how people would respond. We had Charlie Morton with the revenge game. That was fun. But let's be honest here. This series, even though it went to 5 games, felt like the Astros taking care of business versus the Rays, but it was fun. I think Tropicana is a pretty good playoff atmosphere. Then we move on to the championship series. Nationals, Cardinals, forgettable. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. I mean, good for the Nationals to make it their first World Series, but just a snooze fest. I don't remember a single moment from the NLCS, if I'm being honest here. Then we move on to the ALCS between the Astros and Yankees. This one was really good. Rematch from 2017. The Yankees now are a team with expectations. Remember, they came into 2017 with no expectations, which was like a first in Yankees history. We had the Jose Altuve walk-off home run to send them to the World Series. Look, I understand that the only reason this was necessary was because their bullpen blew it in the 9th inning, but anytime you have a clinching walk-off homer, like, I don't care what the situation is, it's always special. I mean, come on, I don't care who you're rooting for. I don't care if you're the biggest Astros hater on the planet. In the moment, it was a blast. And then we get to the World Series. This is great because, again, this was the Nationals' miracle World Series run. You know, facing the big bad Astros at this point. Go back, look at the predictions. Did anybody think the Nationals had a chance in this series? You know, they rode what was left of Corbin, Scherzer, and Strasburg. Strasburg, one of the greatest postseason pitching performances. Just the entire, I mean, we're talking like Madison Bumgarner 2014 levels. The one criticism I will have of this series, you know, like if I'm just kind of judging them like they're movies or something, the fact that the away team won every game, the energy of the series felt a bit off. It felt like the home crowd couldn't really get into it at any point, especially when it went to Washington. I mean, the Astros completely tore the cover off the ball. They outscored them 19-3 when the series moved to Nationals Park. So there was no moment that the Nationals were even remotely in these games. But they won all the close ones. The Astros, you know, like on paper, still kind of were the better team. But it's not about who the better team is. It's about who can win these games. To me, the only real great game from the series was Game 7, which obviously if you're going to pick one game to be the best of the series, you want it to be the last one. Overall, I'm going to put it in I am seated. This was a really good postseason overall. Then we get to 2020. Okay. I know I've taken a stance on my channel that I don't take this season seriously. 60 games is just not enough to determine who the best teams are, who the most complete teams are during the regular season. And I know you could be like, well, the postseason was even harder because, you know, it was even more of a gauntlet. There were more steps to get through. I get that. But the fact that you didn't have to burn your arms, you didn't have to burn through your depth during the regular season, it was just weird with no fans in the stands. But all that being said, I am going to give this postseason its fair shake. I'm going to judge it as objectively as I can just based on the games. But obviously the energy factor is going to play a role in how I view this postseason overall. And also we'll judge it based on the format because we had some teams, man, that just had no business being here. Eye-watering 16 teams, 16 out of 30 teams making it in the postseason, which I thought was like such a mistake. Like, I understand they're trying to recoup as much as they can that they're losing from the gate through TV, through national broadcast. I get that, but it just made for a lot of not good baseball, in my opinion. But let's go through each series. Let's try to find something here. With the Super Wild Card Series, where like every team played in the Wild Card Series, I'm gonna quickly rattle through them. Comment below how many of these you remember. Okay, Tampa Bay Rays, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Brewers. A lot of us are gonna remember that one because the Brewers had one of the worst postseason lineups like we've ever seen. Yankees, Indians, Padres, Cardinals, Astros, Twins, Marlins, Cubs, Athletics, White Sox, Braves, Reds. I'm a Braves fan and I barely remember that series. The only thing I remember it for is like we had like insanely low scoring games. And normally you could be like, oh, you know, the pitching was really good. It just felt like two offenses that just weren't awake during that series. And then you had like the bubbles, like they were able to play at home during the wild card series, but then they had to go play in their respective bubbles for the division series and the championship series, and they weren't playing in front of fans. I kept forgetting who the home team was. So then we get the division series. Braves, Marlins, again, I know they beat the Cubs, but another team that just felt like they had no business being there. Dodgers, Padres. I will say that was a good series, even though it was a sweep, because that was the birth of the Padres-Dodgers rivalry as we know it today. Pretty good stuff overall. I'll give them that. Astros, Athletics. I gotta be honest, I don't remember this series at all. Rays, Yankees was actually pretty good. Division series. You had Mike Brosseau hitting that. I think it was a walk-off homer, right? Yeah? I'll play the clip so we can all see, but yeah, Mike Brosseau getting the walk-off or go-ahead homer off of Aroldis Chapman after Chapman nearly killed him at the beginning of the season. And then we get to the championship series that both went 7 games. The Braves blew a 3-1 lead. We had some interesting games here and there. Kyle Wright giving up like a jillion runs in his start, and then you had AJ Minter as the Braves opener. I want to say he went 9 up, 9 down. Just a great performance overall. But some pretty fun games. Like, again, as a Braves fan, like, just, I didn't, like, even if the Braves won the 2020 World Series, I wouldn't think it was any more valid than if the Dodgers won. Like, I don't not take the season seriously because, oh, I'm a Dodgers hater, and, like, the Dodgers suck, whatever. I don't know. It just, none of it felt real. The energy was weird. It was nice that the Braves and Dodgers got to play in front of some fans. In Arlington, the first time Globe Life Park saw any fans in the stands, and it was to watch a playoff game between the Dodgers and Braves. I will say, you kind of have to appreciate the absurdity. All these are professional athletes, competitors at the highest level, and like seeing them have to do this in front of essentially stadium security and people who work for the TV networks. It's kind of like there is something to the absurdity of that I do appreciate. Rays, Astros, I barely remember either. Jose Altuve had the yips because I guess playing in front of nobody was like too much pressure for him. I will say once we get to the World Series, this was actually a really good World Series, okay? The dichotomy between the Dodgers and the Rays, you know, the Rays are the ultimate Moneyball strategy, and then the Dodgers are the ultimate Moneyball, but we have like a gazillion dollars to spend strategy. It was a fun matchup. These teams actually did feel very evenly matched. And I will say, the Brett Phillips walk-off in Game 4, one of the greatest moments in postseason history. I don't care if they were playing in front of 40,000 fans. I don't care if it was in front of 5 fans. That was a truly special moment for many reasons. Playoff Randy Arozarena coming out of nowhere to just put on one of the greatest postseason performances of all time. That's another great thing about the postseason. If like you have a guy who's just on a heater, who's on a hot streak, it doesn't matter who he is. They're basically the greatest player on the planet in that moment, and they're treated that way. He was really fun to watch. So I will say, this postseason, the more it kind of started to look like the format that we're more used to when we get to the World Series, it actually turned into like a pretty good postseason overall. I'm gonna put it over 2018 in just okay. Kind of insane, but I am gonna put over just 2018 just okay. This is the only time I will give 2020 any credit. The postseason was fine. It was some good baseball, some memorable moments. Also, Blake Snell being pulled in the 6th inning too. Great thing about the MLB postseason is that amplifies all these conversations that we're having at the time, and that was one of them. You know, analytics versus feel. That felt like a watershed moment in a lot of ways, and yeah, just a really, really good World Series that followed a good championship series after kind of a messy division and wild card series that was a first for the time. So congratulations 2020, you finally have something going for you. Then we have 2021. How to not be biased. How am I not going to be biased about 2021? I'm going to do it with facts, logic, and being a complete homer for my Atlanta Braves. First, we have the NL wildcard. A pretty good game overall. Chris Taylor, one of the greatest all-time good players ever, getting the decisive hit. As much crap as we want to give the Dodgers for being this big market and just, buying their way to the postseason every year, guys like Chris Taylor really epitomized the spirit of this team, and I'm glad he got his postseason moment for the Dodgers. The AL wildcard, again, every time the Red Sox and Yankees meet up, great times. You want them to match up in a series, but this was a unique circumstance, them meeting up in a wild card game. The Red Sox, we have to remember at the time too, the Red Sox were kind of a different animal from when we last saw them in the playoffs. This was post Mookie Betts Red Sox. They were kind of these scrappy underdogs now. A lot of players that your grandma might not know about anymore. Yeah, Kyle Schwarber resuming his reign of terror over the MLB postseason. It was a good game. Red Sox continuing the narrative of owning the Yankees in the postseason. Kind of funny that during this time, there was just two teams the Yankees were not able to pass during this time until very recently. Dodgers-Giants, again, a series that I think the worst part about it was that it was just in the division series. These are two franchises that go way back. The Giants, the 2021 Giants, a complete juggernaut, took the NL West from the Dodgers, forcing them to play in the wild card game. I actually kind of have my theories that if the Giants don't win the West, the Dodgers are able to beat the Braves in the championship series. Fallacy of predetermined outcomes, butterfly effect. We don't know that for sure. The Giants put up a really good fight. Series ending on a missed check swing call does taint it. Using facts and logic here, this postseason started off with two historical rivalries going at it, and for the most part delivering. I know the Red Sox-Yankees game was underwhelming, but the Dodgers-Giants lived up to the billing. Then we have Braves-Brewers. I know the Brewers technically had the better record. The Braves just had a ton more momentum going into this game. Look, we got Jocktober with a Freddie Freeman go-ahead home run in Game 4. I know a lot of this stuff I remember more fondly because of my attachment to this stupid franchise, but a good series. But again, I will say objectively, a little underwhelming. The Braves, again, felt like they were in control most of the time. Red Sox Rays, the problem with the rest of these division series is that they just didn't go 5 games, but they were still all solid across the board. Red Sox Rays is another one. A couple entertaining moments. We had Randy Arozarena stealing home. Again, these teams matched up really, really well. I think Hunter Renfroe, I actually forgot what team Hunter Renfroe was playing off of, but there was the ground rule double that went off his chest or something. Any playoff game in Fenway Park is going to be special just because of how chaotic that stadium is. It's basically just a giant pinball machine. Astros, White Sox looking like a formidable team against the, again, at this time, powerhouse Astros. I know they lost the series, but the one game they took from the series was an all-timer. I know a lot of White Sox fans who hold dear to it because, again, the only postseason win in the last 15-plus-ish years. But again, a good series. Biggest problem with these last 3 division series is they just didn't go 5 games. But I think across the board, they were all good, all memorable. Then we get the championship series. Just like the 2019 Nationals, who saw the Braves coming here? I gave the Nationals their flowers in the 2019 NLDS. Let me give the Braves theirs in the 2021 NLCS. Okay, nobody saw this team overcoming the Dodgers. I'm sorry, that Game 6, I still see highlights on MLB's Twitter account for that Game 6. One of the most clutch pitching performances from Tyler Nutsack. Again, I think the Dodgers were a team that a lot of people, even outside of Braves fans, wanted to see lose. I think the whole country was kind of pulling for the Braves. But again, I understand my biases there. Eddie Rosario just going off in this series. The storylines are there with the Braves. Their season basically being dead in the water in July. Coming up with the power of vibes to defeat the big bad Dodgers. This series had it all. Again, the only issue was that it didn't go 7 games. But honestly, as a Braves fan, thank God it only went 6. I don't think I would have survived a Game 7. Even if they won, I would have died, probably in the top of the 5th inning. I know you can make the argument that the Braves shouldn't have gone home field advantage because they had a much worse record. They just happened to not play in the same division as the 2021 Giants. I don't care. The Astros Red Sox, also another good series. You had some good moments. The Carlos Correa, what time is it? The Astros this time, this is the first postseason that they played in front of fans after the revelations of their cheating scandal. Kind of a rematch of 2018, even though the Red Sox, like I said, looked a lot different at this time. But whenever these two teams match up, it's always entertaining. It's always good. We had playoff Kike Hernandez. And again, the Red Sox were kind of a good story at this time as well. Not a lot of people were expecting them to even make the postseason, let alone make a deep run into it. And then we get to the World Series. I will say, in terms of entertainment factor, yes, the NLCS was a lot better than the World Series. That being said, Charlie Morton striking out Jose Altuve on a broken leg. The Adam Duvall grand slam. Jorge Soler's Game 6 homer that still hasn't landed. The Braves were a team that weren't fazed by any point. Like this wasn't a team that was just happy to be there. They were on a mission with a night shift bullpen with Will Smith. We had Tucker Davidson start a World Series game. We had Dylan Lee start a game that we won. No, honestly, get the fuck out of here. Telling my grandkids, I'll put it below 2016. But even unbiased, I think this was a good postseason, okay? Get off my back. Every series had something to offer. That's, I think, what separates the 2021 postseason from 2017 or even 2019. Every series had at least one play that each team that participated could put in their highlight reel. So 2021, great, objectively, no argument. We're not arguing, all right? I'm gonna block you. If you tell me that I'm wrong about 2021, you're getting blocked. Just kidding. I love you all. Please argue with me. Okay. 2022. Okay. So this was an important year. This was the introduction of the wild card series, the expanded playoffs. We got rid of the wild card game. Get it out of here. It was fun while it lasted. The wild card game is one of those things that, like, I'm glad that we had it, but I'm also glad that it's gone. Because like I said earlier, there's just no reason to have a team's 162 game season amount to basically being thrown in the Thunderdome. Is the wild card series better, it being a best out of 3? I don't think so. Later this month on my Patreon, I actually am going to post a video about how I would create the postseason bracket with MLB expansion. So if we move to a 32 team league, how would I handle divisions, postseason tiering, all of that fun stuff later on my Patreon. Please check it out. Patreon.com/NoMoreFielders. Starting out with the Phillies Cardinals wild card series. Oh, shit. Sorry, I was just thinking about the Phillies Cardinals wild card series. Even objectively speaking, though, it was kind of disappointing. The Cardinals didn't really put up much of a fight. I will say, being, Albert Pujols' and Yadier Molina's send-off, like, that was cool. I'm glad that they got to play in one last series together. I just wish they won a single game. Then we have the Mariners Blue Jays. This one was really good. The Mariners come back in game 2. One of the craziest games. I mean, if this was a wild card game, that's the thing. If this was a wild card game, I think it would be talking about it a lot more than if it was just the wild card series. Maybe I'm wrong, but there was that pretty scary play in the outfield between Springer and Bichette. But let's be honest, it was pretty electric. Mariners, they're just a team at this point where anytime they make any sort of postseason run, it's going to be a good time. For a city that's like as far away from the heartland of America as you can get, they felt like they've become America's team in the past couple of years, especially since they were playing a team in Canada. Padres and Mets, this was an interesting one. We had Eargate with Joe Musgrove, Buck Showalter. Joe Musgrove just had shiny ears. I don't know. It was kind of mean, right? Like Buck Showalter was asking the ums to investigate Joe Musgrove's shiny ears. I don't know if he was trying to play mind games. I understand this is still the height of like the sticky stuff and the enforcement of it, but that would have distracted me. The Mets had every right to lose this series. I'm sorry. That was just, don't make fun of the man's appearance. Don't try to get under skin. Like, keep it on the field, okay? Don't try to make fun of the man's appearance. He's just got big shiny ears. Guardians Rays. I gotta be honest, I don't remember anything about this series. By the way, I already hear people writing comments like, "Oh, just because you don't remember, it doesn't mean it was good." Yeah, valid, but like I think I've done a pretty good job. Even a series that I maybe wasn't watching every single game, I can't remember a single highlight. This was recent too. I mean, I feel like I did a pretty good job describing the 2017 NLDS between the Diamondbacks and Dodgers. This one, I just don't remember. I'm sorry, y'all. Next up, we have the NLDS between the Padres and Dodgers. This was great. This was the Padres finally slaying the dragon up I-95, even in a window that has overall been a letdown for the Padres. I'm glad that they at least have this moment. Phillies Braves, objectively a decent series. Phillies pitching just caught the Braves off guard. Ranger Suarez and Aaron Nola haunt me like in my deepest nightmares, but pretty good series. I'll give it to them. The Rhys Hoskins homer, yeah, that was pretty electric. I'll give you that. The bat flip and everything. That's a great moment. I'm sorry. I hate that it's used against us. Astros Mariners. The series was a letdown. That game 1 was awesome. And again, bringing Robbie Ray to face Jordan Alvarez, and Alvarez just hitting that ball like 700 feet. The Astros at this time were just a team everybody was rooting against. Even outside of the cheating scandal, I think we were just kind of tired of seeing them make deep runs every postseason. We were tired of seeing them in the ALCS, tired of seeing them in the World Series. I will say, as a Dusty Baker fan, like I wanted to see him get a ring, even if it was with the Astros. Just keep that in mind while I go through the rest of the 2022 postseason. And that game 3, I gotta be honest, was pretty depressing. I mean, this was the first postseason game we saw at T-Mobile Park since 2001, and the Mariners couldn't muster across any runs, anything, over, was it 18 innings? Over 18 innings. There wasn't one Astros reliever that you had something on. Like, great performance from your relievers to shut down that crazy lineup. The series that started off promising and just really deflated as it went on. The Yankees Guardians, this was another series, like it went 5 games. Josh Naylor rocking the baby against Garrett Cole. That was a great moment. There was like a little bit of bad blood between these teams. It was a good series. I would say Yankees Guardians and Padres Dodgers do make up for the other 2 series being kind of lackluster. Even this series, again, just felt like the Yankees taking care of business. The Guardians were a team I think were just more happy to be there, and also taking advantage of a weak AL Central. Then we get to the championship series. I'm not going to lie. Not great. Not great, y'all. So we have Phillies and Padres in the NLCS. I understand Bryce Harper's home run was cool. It was a great moment. But the Phillies had this series in the bag. It's not like it really changed the outcome as much as we like to think it did. The Padres had an uphill battle in front of them. This really just felt like the Phillies taking care of business. And then the Astros Yankees. This was a sad conclusion to this rivalry. I mean, this was a rivalry that produced the 2017 ALCS, the 2019 ALCS, just for the Astros to sweep them. I understand that 3 of the games were decided by 2 or fewer runs, but again, just didn't feel as competitive. Like, this is all the expectations going into the series, and just for it to be that much of a letdown. And then we get to the 2022 World Series between the Astros and Phillies. It was fine. It was fine. It was a good World Series, but when we're talking storylines, a ton of people did not want to see the Astros win. I'm sorry, Astros fans. I'm not trying to look down on your franchise. I'm just calling it like it is. I was happy to see Dusty Baker get his ring. Most players on the 2017 team, especially the ones that definitely cheated, were gone. Like, most of them were retired by this point. Josh Reddick, Evan Gattis, Carlos Beltran. I'm going to put 2022 and instantly forgettable. Think that just compared to some of the heights we saw, and considering that the Astros were the team that pulled away, just nobody wanted to see them on top, we're going to put it instantly forgettable. All right, going to the 2023 postseason, we have Phillies Marlins wildcard series. Oh, man. The thing with the new format is that you will get a good team that's the number 6 seed, but you will also get a team that has no business being there. The Miami Marlins were one of those teams. Would have been fun if they pulled it out, but it just never felt close. I understand there's the Bryson Stott, the whole stadium singing his stupid walk-up song and him hitting a home run. That's cool, I guess, but besides that, just not really a compelling series. We do have the Twins Blue Jays, 2 teams that I just feel have disappointed their fans tremendously. One of them has to win, right? It was a good series. You had that one Carlos Correa play to get the runner at home. In this series, in all due respect, felt like a stoppable force versus a movable object, and the stoppable force came out on top. Diamondbacks Brewers, good series. This postseason run was defined by the Diamondbacks making this miraculous. I mean, again, like, you think about it, they had the same record as the Miami Marlins. But the Diamondbacks just felt like the much better team going into the postseason, especially being able to take down the Brewers, who were the better seed. The Diamondbacks were technically the number 6 seed. I just wanted to let you all know the Diamondbacks were the number 6 seed. Good series overall. The Diamondbacks of this time just played a really fun brand of baseball. They still do. Their fate is just determined by what kind of pitching performance are they going to get on a given day, because nobody knows. Even if it's their number 1 starter, nobody really knows. Then we have the Rangers-Rays. I gotta be honest, I don't remember anything from this series. I remember the Rays just looked belly up. There were some national conversations happening about the fact that like nobody went to these games. Yeah, no energy this series. Kind of just a very mid slate of wild card series, if I'm being honest here. Moving on to the division series, we have the Diamondbacks and Dodgers. Now in this video, we've seen a ton of great series where the underdog comes out on top. We had the Padres over the Dodgers in 2022, the Braves over the Dodgers in 2021, and who can forget the Nationals over the Dodgers in 2019. Now the Diamondbacks Dodgers is another one of them, but it definitely is the least entertaining and compelling out of all of them. And the reason why is that the Dodgers by this point had no pitching whatsoever. Lance Lynn started a game for them in this series. Clayton Kershaw had a bird's nest in his shoulder. They were cooked, okay? They were cooked. The Dodgers pitching was, for lack of a better term, cooked. Even though they were penciled in as the favorites going into the series, the Diamondbacks really just steamrolled over them. I understand for Diamondbacks fans, like, revenge for 2017 or whatever, but just pure entertainment value, the Dodgers never really seemed into it. It wasn't like a back and forth series like the previous 3 that I mentioned. Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman combined for, I think, like 1 or 2 hits the entire series as well. But regardless, still good to see the underdog come out on top, even if their opponent literally had all their limbs amputated. Then we get to the NLDS between the Phillies and Braves. This one is painful. Objectively speaking, a good series. There was some bad blood between these two teams. Rematch of 2022. The attaboy Harper from Orlando Arcia, and then Harper staring him down after hitting that absolute nuke off of Bryce Elder. I went to game 2 of the series, which essentially ended on a walk-off double play that spawned the attaboy Harper comment. Defiantly, the second best postseason game I've ever been to, right behind game 6 of the 2021 NLCS. Overall, though, it did look like a good series for a second, but it's like as soon as the Braves dropped game 3, they had their backs against the wall. This series also did give us the great Vaughn Grissom when you faded and put into a serious situation meme. That was great. I'll give them that. So an okay series. The division series between the Astros Twins, again, the Twins kind of felt like a team that was just happy to be there. The Astros seemed in control the entire time. I will say Pablo Lopez gave an amazing performance to give the Twins their first playoff win against a more formidable opponent. Again, with all due respect to Blue Jays fans, both teams chronically underperformed in the last 10 years, and that series really just felt more like, well, one of them has to win. So it was nice, the Twins getting that moment against the Astros, put them on their heels a bit. Rangers-Orioles, this was a good series despite being a sweep. There were some entertaining games. Yeah, it was okay. Kind of disappointing for the Orioles to make their first postseason since some of the ugliest years those fans ever had to see from 2018 to 2021, and then just for them to get swept out. Then we move on to the championship series, and honestly, 2 really good ones. Diamondbacks, Phillies, I just want to reiterate, the Dodgers, even though they were the favorite going into the series against the Diamondbacks, they had no pitching. The Phillies did have pitching. They were in the previous year's World Series, chip on their shoulder, must-win games, and they had some really good moments from the series. Alek Thomas's home run off of Craig Kimbrell. The last time we ever saw the Kimbrell postseason experience. The Diamondbacks were a team, I think at this point we thought, okay, you had your moments, you beat the Brewers, you took down the Dodgers, the buck stops here, you're losing to the Phillies, and they just refused to quit. Some really good moments, especially them going down in the series 2-0, them rattling off 2 wins at home, and then beating the Phillies back-to-back days at Citizens Bank Park. Really good series. Again, the Diamondbacks, just a really entertaining team. Then we have the Rangers-Astros. Battle of Texas, already the same division, already the same state. You're going to have some fireworks between these two teams. A little bit of bad blood, too. Brian Abreu ended up getting suspended, or at least initially getting suspended after hitting Adolis Garcia. After kind of a mid-slate of games for the first part of it, really delivered during the championship series. But then we get to the World Series between the Rangers and Diamondbacks. You know, Corey Seager's game-tying home run in Game 1, followed by Adolis Garcia's walk-off homer in extra innings. That was really cool. Made us think for a second this would be a good series. And unfortunately, the rest of it didn't really live up to the billing. You know, it only ending in 5 games is kind of a letdown if we're being honest here. I mean, this was the first World Series to only go 5 games since 2018. And I hate to say it too, and I'm sorry, Rangers fans. It's not a great... Oh, man, I feel terrible saying this. Globe Life just isn't like a great atmosphere. Whenever it doesn't translate on TV, maybe in person, I in person, I bet it's awesome. I bet it's a blast, but it just feels very sterile on TV. It feels very corporate. You feel like you're not a part of the action the same way you do when you're watching a game that's at, you know, Dyken Park or even, I hate to say it, Citizens Bank Park as well. And then the Rangers taking 2 games at Chase Field that didn't feel particularly close. Like, after such a strong start, kind of a letdown World Series. I know a lot of people were saying that, you know, nobody wanted to see these 2 teams. You know, these are smaller markets because, you know, Dallas and Phoenix, small markets. The championship series feel like the only series truly propelling this entire postseason up. I'm not going to say set baseball back, but I am going to put it and instantly forgettable, but I will put it over 2022. Finally, we have the 2024 postseason. Let's get into it. The wild card series between the Padres Braves, just forgettable. The Braves really had no business being there. Chris Sale was hurt, having to start AJ Smith-Shawver behind an offense that was pitiful at this time. You know, look, I'm glad the Padres got their home wins. Petco is one of the best playoff atmospheres as well. So, you know, it was electric. It was great. I mean, you know, as a Braves fan, just tip my cap to them. This wasn't our year. There's no point it was going to be our year. Even going into it, it just had a different energy from 2021 because 2021 we ended strong. 2024 we ended weak. Then we have the Kansas City Royals versus the Baltimore Orioles in Camden Yard. Depressing, sad, sorrowful, regretful, miserable, despondent, disconsolate, wretched, glum, that's a good one, gloomy, woebegone, woeful, mournful, melancholic. We have the Mets Brewers. This was a good series. Pete Alonso's home run off of Devin Williams. I will say 2024, OMG Mets was the prevailing story. Even though they lost to the Dodgers in the NLCS, which we will get to in a second, this is the first team I've really seen who, despite not even getting to the World Series, really stole all the headlines. Even as a Braves fan, I was buying into the hype. I still kind of knew they were going to lose to the Dodgers, but it was still a fun story, even though they were our rivals. You know, they were the Grimace Mets, they were the OMG Mets, they were the gay Mets, they had the Rally Pumpkin. Every successful team needs vibes, and the Mets had every possible type of vibe that you could imagine. They were just inventing new vibes during this postseason run. Great series against the Brewers. We have Tigers Astros. This was a good one. This was a good series. Tarek Skubal shoving, really kind of making his name on the national stage here. Andy Ibanez's swing against Josh Hader. You know, it's kind of looking like this was the collapse of the Astros dynasty, which I'm just saying it like it is, Astros fans. A lot of baseball fans were wanting to see, like, even 5 years ago, even before the cheating scandal broke. Moving on to the division series, Dodgers-Padres. This was an all-time classic. The ending wasn't great just because the Padres didn't score a run and was at like 24 innings. Impressively bad, but also speaks to, you know, how good of a pitcher Yamamoto was, I think, in Game 5. You had Jerks and Profar robbing Mookie Betts, trolling the over 40,000 people at Dodger Stadium. There was a ton of bad blood this series. We had the ball gate with Manny Machado trying to kill Dave Roberts. This series had it all. It was definitely front-loaded. Still a great series, one that, you know, fans of both teams are going to think about for decades. Then we have Mets and Phillies. Another really good series, the Francisco Lindor Grand Slam. Sorry, Guardians fans, but shades of 2017. But he's just such a fun postseason performer. Being able to overcome the Phillies, who have, at this point made deep runs in the previous 3 postseasons. So, kind of seeing them get knocked out early was a shock to the system for a lot of people, especially me. Yankees Royals. Kind of forgettable. I mean, the Royals, again, I know they took 1 game, but they just didn't seem like a team that had any business being there. And I hate to say it, Kauffman Stadium, kind of a weird October atmosphere. I think when they're really in it, but it kind of just felt like a lot of people in the stadium were watching Chiefs highlights during the game. Guardians Tigers, another really good series. The fact that the division series gave us 3 division rivals, kind of insane, kind of unprecedented. I don't think we realize how lucky we were. Whenever these matchups happen, it's always just a blast for both sides and for just the casual fan, kind of, get some insight into the rivalry as well. Lane Thomas's Grand Slam against Tarek Skubal, Spencer Torkelson's go-ahead home run off of Emmanuel Clase. Some really good moments. This is honestly, this postseason starting out strong. We get to the championship series. There was kind of a dichotomy between these 2 championship series. You had the Dodgers and Mets going to 6 games, but the Dodgers blew out a couple of those games. 2 of those wins weren't even close, but the Mets did put up a fight. I mean, they made the Dodgers sweat. Even though their season didn't end out on top, I think any Mets fan that you ask, especially considering how they started the season, I don't think any of them would consider this season a disappointment. 2025, on the other hand, different story. And then on the flip side of that, you had Yankees Guardians, which, even though it only went 5 games, 5 really good games. This series honestly should have gone 6 games. The only game that the Guardians won, the John Kenzie Noel game tying homer and the David Fry walk-off homer. I mean, absolutely electric. Progressive Field, another low-key, pretty good playoff atmosphere. There's not really many bad playoff atmospheres. I think there's just some that are a little elevated over others. There's just a different energy to it. Yeah, some close games. The Juan Soto home run, that was great. I'm sorry, that was great. And for him to do that and have his signature Yankees moment in the 1 year he was in pinstripes, just amazing. Then we get to the World Series, complete opposite of 2023. You went from 2 lower seed small market teams to 2 higher seed bigger market teams. Each game was pretty good. This one had a lot of anticipation going into it. These are 2 teams, historically speaking, who met each other in the postseason all the time. So there's some significance there, even though they haven't seen each other. I think it was since 1978? Maybe it was more recently than that. So fun throwback even. I mean, even for the historical heads, you have that going for the series. And you look at game 1 and one of the greatest postseason games of all time. I'm sorry, bar none. It doesn't get much better than that. I would put that up there with Game 5 of the 2017 World Series. I would put that up there with Game 6 of the 2021 NLCS. Freddie Freeman having his own Kirk Gibson moment. Yeah, it just doesn't get much better than that. But the rest of the series, something of a letdown. Dodgers take games 2 and 3, and you're like, well, now the Yankees' backs are against the wall. There's no way they're rattling off 4 straight wins. Of course they don't. But then I will say Game 5, another memorable game, another one that Yankees fans, Dodgers fans, any baseball fan is going to be talking about for decades. One of the craziest, greatest 5th inning collapses. And again, it gives the Yankees this image of being a team that's not fundamentally sound. A team that gets the big things right, but doesn't get the small things right. And again, you gave 2-bit radio host material for the next year plus. The biggest problem, though, is just the fact the Dodgers went up 3-0. And at that point, the Yankees had no chance. They got their 1 win. You got playoff Volpe with his big swing, but kind of just felt over. It's never a good sign when a series feels over after 3 games. It's a good rule of thumb. I should have said that earlier, actually. If a series is over, if a series feels over, it doesn't even have to be a team goes up 3-0. It's if it feels over after 3 games, it's probably not going to be a good series. So that was the biggest letdown. It had so much anticipation. It had so much billing going into it. And first game was really promising. And then the rest of the series was a big letdown, unfortunately. I'll put it into the bottom of I Am Seated. We had OMG Mets, some really good division series, and some really good moments throughout the championship and World Series. Even if none of them necessarily reach the heights of, 2019 or 2017, 2021, or 2016. So there's our tier list. I feel pretty good about it. Nothing in set baseball back. I'm actually glad I didn't use that last tier. It would actually be pretty impressive for a postseason to just not produce anything of substance. But I feel pretty good about it. I think gut feeling, if I were to just look at this, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this all looks right. A lot of people are going to disagree with me about 2017. I understand. A lot of people are going to call bias for 2021. I also understand. And yeah, there is a little bit of bias in there, and I will own up to it. But I feel pretty good about it. Please, if you have any disagreements, if you think any postseason should be ranked higher, leave it down below in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will see you all next time.